Hello. Hey, everybody. How's it going? Hi. Hi, New York. My name is Josh Horowitz. I host a podcast called Happy Sad Confused, but tonight it is my true honor to welcome you to the Q&A portion of this early sneak peek at this fantastic movie. How great is Scoop, everybody? Unbelievable. Unbelievable. This fantastic true story gives us a great opportunity tonight not only to meet two amazing actors, but one of the true life participants. Don't worry, it's not Prince Andrew. That would be very awkward. That would be super weird. No, but we have truly the hero of this story. Please give a warm welcome to the actual Sam McAlister joining us tonight. Also joining us tonight, if you want to busy yourself reading a very long Wikipedia entry, just read the awards entry for Gillian Anderson. Please give it up for Gillian Anderson, everybody. And look, we're not giving you one Sam McAlister tonight, we're giving you two. It's the one and only, the amazing Billie Piper, everybody. Give it up. Congratulations, everybody. Well done.
Thank you.
First, very important question. Is Don't Rain on My Parade your actual ringtone?
It is now.
Is that the one embellishment in the film that is not true?
So it was feeling good originally, but I now have both of them and I swap them and I prefer Don't Rain on My Parade.
Yeah. Okay.
Big headline scoop there, guys.
Yeah. I got my exclusive. I'm out. Bye, guys. Do you guys have songs as ringtones? Where are you at on ringtone? No, just basic. It's all good.
Nokia Bird. The classic.
The classic. OG. Sam, I want to start with you. Mm-hmm.
Vibration.
I think you should just say that now and again throughout this.
The secret word tonight is vibration. Sam, on the surreality scale, how surreal is it to watch this movie for
I need
you?
a new word. Because there isn't one to describe it. I mean, obviously you can imagine the experience itself in real life was incredibly surreal and extraordinary. And then watching it again with the incredible performances of these brilliant women, indeed. I mean, it's just meta. I mean, it's like meta surreal. I need a new word.
So after this all went down, how quickly did you realize that the behind-the-scenes part of this merited a story, that this was a real story worth telling, and first in book form, but eventually, obviously, as a film?
Yeah, I think really, in this kind of age of truth and everyone being really interested in how things actually occurred, obviously, the question that I was always asked when I revealed I'd worked on this interview was, how did this happen? How? And other words that we can't use in such polite company. How on earth did you convince him to do it? And every time I told the tale, literally without fail, people would say to me, oh, you should write a book. And eventually I just kind of thought, in the future, when someone randomly is interested in how this came about, there wasn't a public record, actually, of how it all began. Disappointingly with an email, guys, I'm so sorry about that. But there wasn't a public record of it, and actually I felt it was important in a tiny way, even if it was just my mum reading the book, that somewhere in some dusty library there was a version of how this happened. And so that's why I decided to leave the BBC and write this little tome, and of course never envisaging that this little tome would become this iconic movie with these iconic talents.
So for Billie and Gillian, when this idea comes around, when you get the initial phone call, the script, I don't know how it was presented to each of you, is it immediately intriguing, or is it more of red flags, like, oh God, this is going to be touchy? I mean, what intrigued you or what worried you, perhaps, when you heard about this as a potential concept for a film?
I think we had a different response, didn't we? I felt immediately compelled to be part of it because I followed the story so closely. So I was intrigued to see where it was going to go, given that we know everything about the interview. So it's like, where are the stakes if we all know we're heading towards this one car crash moment? And then when I read the script, I was just in awe of it, really, because I just thought, well, here's this unsung hero that really needs her day in the sun. She's so integral. You know, there are 4 women who made this happen, and I guess that was the appeal ultimately for me. So yeah, it was an immediate yes.
Not the same
Not
answer.
the same for Gillian.
From this, as I understand.
Mine was an immediate no.
First vibration,
No, I
and
did
then no.
not want to play Emily Maitlis. Thank you very much. Emily, I don't know how much you guys know of her work, but she's very well known in the UK where I live, and she's in my proximity. Like, she lives kind of in the neighborhood, and she is. And she is known as a, you know, as a superwoman, like, you know, like you say in the film. And she's, you know, an incredibly prolific journalist, and is incredibly well respected, and, you know, is tan, and
Is it 10?
she's a 10 and she's tan. She's a 10. She's a 10. And runs and swims and has children and all those things that women do so well, but I don't. Anyway, yes. So I said no, and then the writer, I was Zooming with the writer and director, and they said, well, you know, that because you think of it as being such a scary thing, that actually means that you have to do it. And I said, yes, I do know that, actually.
I've heard that story, I guess.
Yeah.
But, and then, of course, so you two have kind of obviously different tasks at hand here. You have the subject literally on set. Were you on set every day, Sam?
Oh, I was really classy at the beginning. I went like once a week, and then by the end, like, they could not drag me away.
Her mum was there. Tom was there.
Yeah, my boyfriend was there. My mum came. My son didn't come because he's a teenager. That's the way it goes. But yeah, I mean, I just have taken every magical moment of this incredible experience. So yeah, I was there quite a lot.
So, what was the first initial meeting like? I mean, who's auditioning who in that moment, in a way?
It didn't really feel like that for me, anyway.
No, definitely not.
We had a martini, which I'd never had before, so that was great. And then we talked a lot about our sort of, we have a lot of similarities, I suppose, in our past. So we connected over those, and we just connected on a human level. We talked a bit about the script, but mostly it was just, where are we the same? And it didn't feel like that was happening in an aggressive way or a sort or a forensic way. It was just happening in a, how can I connect with you? And it was kind of immediate for me, if I'm honest, Sam.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Thank you. That's lovely. Can we just take a moment? We'll just take a moment.
Talk amongst yourselves. Yep.
Sorry, guys. But it was really, that was really beautiful, because I wondered if it was going to be like a job interview, you know, with 100 questions. And what's so brilliant about Billie is she was so generous with her time, and also with her humanity and her openness. So we literally sat there for hours. I mean, you know, cackling. We both have really big laughs and really big hearts. And I just felt we had so much in common in terms of our humanity that I felt so reassured by that first meeting. And obviously the gin was also integral.
Never hurts. Okay, earmuffs for you for a second. What's her superpower? What can she do? What is the Sam McAlister?
Well, she can get what she wants, but in a way that isn't aggressive. It's actually open-hearted, curious, in awe of her subjects. It's a completely different approach to anything I've ever seen, and she still has enormous integrity. It's not like she's being, you know, cutesy. It's not, and well, it doesn't seem to be an affectation. It just seems to be your way, and I think that's what sets you aside. I think that's kind of an extraordinary skill set.
Thank you.
That no one really has.
Thank you again.
Except you.
Do you want to be my agent?
Yeah, I said I'd be your agent
Publicist?
because you
Thank
do
you.
need one of these chat shows, I think.
I really do. So thank you, Billie.
We'll
Thank
get
I'll
on
take
to
over.
that.
Feel free. Less work for me. And for you, what did you make of Emily going into this and coming out of this? What did you learn about her? Did your interpretation, your assessment of her change in the course of the making of this project?
Well, I did a deep dive and listened and watched as much as I could, and I think I was already a fan of her as a journalist, and then one of the things I hadn't realized, and that I was also the most fascinated by, was the time that they spent in preparation, which I think in our earlier draft it was a longer chunk. It was. And I really loved that bit in the script, because it felt like somehow it ramped up the stakes even more, in a sense, because you got to see the different versions of how the questions could be asked and what the potential consequences would be, and spoke more about his different personality traits and the things that may or may not put him off. And anyway, I found all that fascinating. And so the idea that might be something that journalists do, if they have a high stakes interview, and also knowing the degree to which Emily does, in fact, or she has spoken about regretting not having asked the difficult questions of Clinton around Monica Lewinsky, and the degree to which that's hanging over her, and may have been hanging over her a little bit in confronting Prince Andrew. And so I'm not really answering your question at all,
but it reminds me of, like, when I was watching it, I'm like, this is almost like, it's almost like either a Western or a sports movie. It's leading to, like the structure of it is really building and builds throughout. And you talk about, like, the prep sessions. It's the coach in the locker room, like, prepping the team.
But also how it was edited in the film. I loved how they did it, where I'm in the prep sessions, I'm asking the questions, but he's answering them. So you get to not be in the main interview for those, because you've already heard the answer.
The pace of the film wasn't apparent on set. What you see in the edit was really quite surprising to us, because there's sort of long scenes about, and very intense scenes, but they're in, the palace or in the BBC, and those places are quite controlled environments, and so there is a world in which that could have been really boring, But it was such a surprise. I think when I saw the edit, I was like, wow, this is just moving along.
And what's so great about, I think, the way that Philip did it is that, I was there originally. Obviously, I was there on set. I've watched it 50 times, but I still felt peril. I'm like, is he going to do the interview? And every answer, even though I've heard them and I was literally there, I'm just like, what's he going to say? No, he did not. So, I remember on set when you were doing it, the extraordinary time that you and Rufus met for the first time, basically face-to-face, like, adversaries, which is basically what Emily and Rufus were. And I'm sitting there going, what's going to happen? So I think what was so brilliant about the performances and about the script is it made the familiar unfamiliar, and of course told you the 95% before the actual interview that happened. So it's really a thrilling pace, and full credit to the script and to Philip and to you guys. I similarly was like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen?
So what did you make of him prior to the interview, when you met with him and his team? His attitude in this it's bizarre, seemingly bizarre. What did you make of what he was projecting in that meeting?
The joy for me is that I used to be a criminal defense lawyer, and obviously when you go into a cell with a client and they may tell you something that sounds a little bit of a stretch of the imagination, you learn professionally to show no emotion and to give them, if you like, the benefit of your professionalism. So dealing with Prince Andrew, that skill set really came into fruition. And when we were in that final negotiation, which you see dramatized, where I did say to his face, as close as I am almost to you, Gillian, between the two of you, I called him Randy Andy in Buckingham Palace. I did. In that moment, you just really have an integral understanding that it's all or nothing. And I made of him what I would make of anyone in his situation, that he had a lot to lose, but he had a lot to gain if he'd done a good job, and it was an opportunity for him, which he frankly squandered.
If you were on the other side, what would you have told him to do?
The words. Since we've done this, I've met quite a few people who over the years have worked for members of the royal family, and every time they meet me, they literally run up to me and they go, "Oh my," words we can't use in polite company, "how on earth, what the actual..." I don't think it was the best idea in the world. And...
Understatement of the night.
Yeah, we're keeping it classy here, and I think that was a correct position to take, judging by what happened. Don't want to spoil the movie. I know you've already seen it. It didn't go well, and it continues not to go well now. So I think it was a calculated risk for him, and he had that misperception of himself that lots of people in power do, surrounded by people who believe in them or who flatter their egos. We're all partial to that, right? It's fun being told you're amazing, and he'd been told he was amazing in a palace with no need for money and staff for 59 years. So the disconnect between his perception of his capability and the actuality was really quite vast, but it could have gone differently if the space wasn't so big.
Well, there is, you kind of referenced this earlier, there's kind of a bit of a poetry. It's a quartet of women confronting a man just teeming with male hubris, just sort of like, it's just so ingrained in him that he can control his own narrative. There's no question there. It's just, oh well, sorry, Andrew. Talk to me about, okay, the actual interview. How many times do you think you guys have watched it? I mean, you in particular had to, obviously, you don't have to recreate every nuance, but you do probably want to get pretty damn close, I would think. What's that like as an approach as an actor, knowing I can be like firing up on YouTube that actual interview while you're doing your thing in this recreation?
I didn't quite do that to myself. I didn't envision people sitting there going, you know. But yeah, I mean, you know, I think both of us wanted to get it as accurate as possible, and we prepared separately. He lives in LA, I live in London. The interview, as you see it now, I don't think we'd entirely settled on which exact questions and answers were going to take place until we were probably a couple weeks out, and then it was decided after a conversation that we were going to potentially try and do it rather than breaking it up into sections. You know, the sections where you cut away and show Billie, or cut away back to the BBC, that we were actually going to try and do it in one go. So it was about a 20-minute chunk of the 50-minute interview. And so there's a young woman that has done some things for me before, and I asked her, she's good with tech, and so I asked her if she would take those bits, our 20-minute version, out of the interview and create a separate doc of that. So I would watch that over and over again, and then an audio version of that, just in audio, so I could listen to it, but then also just my questions, but each question repeated 10 times. Because then, I know, but then also because you hear it and you think, I got it, but then you don't want to move on. So I kept like rewinding and going back again, and I thought, no, I need to get her to do it. So anyway, so that's kind of what I did.
So and does that make you feel like hemmed in as an actor, or like do you feel like still you have the freedom? Because you, again, the words are the words.
Yeah.
The video's the video. But you want to give it your own spin, your own interpretation, or is the task different in a sequence like that? For me, it felt like it was different. I mean, I knew on the one hand that I didn't want to study her so obsessively that I therefore felt hemmed in, that there wasn't, when I had done Thatcher in The Crown, somebody had suggested that or I'd been given the advice to keep an element of myself in her, that not to become, you know, so I didn't feel too mimicry. No, you know. We'll go with it. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. And so, you know, there was part of me that wanted to take that advice for this as well, and so that I think that's where the freedom was, and just feeling like it was comfortable enough, and I felt like I was doing her enough.
in the rest of it. But then for the interview, I felt like I didn't want anybody to be sitting and watching it and thinking, oh, she didn't do that there, or that they'd watched it enough, or that didn't, And so the interview itself, it was important to me that when she looked up, I looked up. When she gestured, I gestured. When she and got the tone and the cadence right. So yeah, it was
Billie, has this changed your perspective on journalism? I mean, this is not the chicest time for journalists. They're under fire, and yet we have to, celebrate the ones that are doing it right, that are speaking truth to power.
Yeah. I think that's the point, isn't it? That these journalists are doing something right and holding a person of power and privilege, making them accountable for the behaviours. I think that's kind of crucial, and that's where I really have a lot of compassion for that style of journalism, which is no easy feat. Like the amount of tenacity and work it takes to get that done, to clinch that deal it's so dog eat dog. I didn't realize it's such a ruthless. It's like a blood sport, which is not dissimilar to acting in some ways. But it was really surprising. I mean, I obviously have a very different relationship with a lot of journalists or journalism. But I don't know that this is the same sort of world. And I think it's really important that this style continues.
Are you saying that entertainment journalism is not the most important?
I'm sorry. No. I'm here for
I'm
here for the entertainment journalism. I'm talking about it's obviously important that someone like Prince Andrew, who has associations with Epstein, is questioned. And there's a big element of truth, and that's sort of important. It's sort of less important than say Britney Spears on a Friday night.
Was this the biggest moment of your career, just getting the booking, like getting it official? I would imagine. I was telling you backstage, I was a booker, I was a producer. I totally connected with this from that aspect. That must have been just a career high when you knew it was actually happening.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to match.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, who are you going to get next? It's because most of the job, as you know from your own experience, is failure and rejection and slammed phones and being told to go away in polite ways. So most of my job was like going on 100 first dates and 99 rejections. So you have to be very resilient. You have to be dogged. You have to not take it personally. All very important life traits. But obviously, I never thought for 1 second that he would say yes. And when he did, we did the final negotiation on the Monday, and they said yes on the Tuesday morning, and we're in the South Drawing Room in Buckingham Palace on Thursday, just those 2 days later. So it really was an exceptional roller coaster. There was so much at stake for us as a news organization, obviously on Emily and the responsibility on Esme, the editor, on myself, and of course on Amanda Thirsk on the other side of things, because obviously when things go wrong, we all know who's going to take the hit. So it was an exceptional moment, and even now it still feels slightly unreal. But yeah, I thought it was going to be pretty unlikely that I'd be able to match that ever again. So basically, I just had to leave journalism.
And then in the immediate aftermath, you must have been steeling yourself for like the call's going to come. That's going to. It seems
100%.
I mean, one of the most unfathomable things about this is that seemingly he and they thought it went all right.
Yeah, not only all right. I mean, his face. I'm just going to do a reenactment for you now. Okay, so bear with me. This is my acting moment, guys. So don't ruin it for me. So at the end of it, this is Emily's face, and this is Prince Andrew's face. So he thought it had gone really, really well. And I mean, let alone I never thought he would say that on camera. I never thought that someone wouldn't interrupt it or it would be stopped. And I didn't really, to be honest with you guys, think it would make it to air just 48 hours later. It just felt impossible that even though it's an advanced democracy with freedom of expression and all those important things, it felt impossible that someone would not stop this from happening. Even in my own organization, to be honest, So it felt that there was a real peril between Thursday and Saturday. And I don't know how we would have lived with ourselves in a sense. I mean, Emily, obviously a person of great integrity and public profile. me, a person of great integrity and no profile. But, I felt we would have resigned en masse or something. It felt so hugely important. Not that anyone would have cared about me doing it, but it was a point of principle, guys. So it felt impossible to get, impossible to do, and impossible that it would go to air. And that was from the Monday to the Saturday. And then he effectively was sacked by his own mum just 3 days later, 9 days after he met me for the first time. So...
Now, is there a sense of satisfaction when that happens? Is there, what is...
Do you know, funnily enough, no.
Yeah.
Because I think that I come to it with such a kind of pragmatism. It's such fair questions, right? He gets a fair opportunity to give an account of himself that could have been different. And so, in a sense, although people ask me, do you feel bad for him, which I don't, he had a fair opportunity and he's messed it up. But I felt we dealt with him with integrity and it could have gone differently. So, yeah, I wasn't looking for him to fail, but I wasn't looking for him to succeed. I have a blank, neutral mind on it. But obviously the outcome was sensational in terms of the BBC and the outcomes it had. But I went in with an open mind and an open heart, and obviously things didn't go well.
You obviously have a friendship now with Sam. You do not necessarily have a relationship with Emily, though. You've shared space with Emily.
Yes.
I don't necessarily want you to relive an uncomfortable moment, but I kind of do. You ran into her, and this was in the middle of shooting, as I understand it.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
what is that like for you? Because you were living and breathing this at the
Yeah.
time. Is that like oh, bleeping God, I'm...
Well, I've actually run into her twice, and and the first time was at a charity event where she was being interviewed by the opposition leader, Keir Starmer, and I was at this charity event, and I'd been invited at the last minute, and I'd just come in from the country and been with my kids, and everything was muddy, and and I came in, I wasn't really prepared. I didn't realize it was such a fancy event, and threw some stuff on, and it didn't no hair, makeup, blah blah blah, and showed up at this event, and I was sitting around the table and then somebody next to me said she's arrived, and let's get a picture. And so I went out to take a picture, and firstly I went in for, I'd just been studying. I knew her really, really well at that point, and she was my best friend. And so I went in for a really, really big hug, and she kind of looked at me like I was a lunatic. She was very sweet and very gracious, and wanted me to know her reasons behind not having met to talk about things. But she came in a leather, a white leather miniskirt dress with the blowout and tan, and I was how I was, and this picture lives on, and it's if you looked at it and asked which one was the journalist and which one was the celebrity, you wouldn't have guessed it the right way around. But then the next time that I ran into her, I was walking my dog in Hyde Park, and we have this routine where I take her on the lead, and then there's a dustbin, a garbage bin, where she immediately sits down on the lead, and I bend down to take the lead off, and as I'm bent down, somebody pushes past me to throw something in the garbage bin, and just as I'm standing up, Moody runs between me and my dog, and I think, Emily. And so I stand up, and I literally, just the night before, I'd seen the film for the first time, and she's walking away, she starts to run with her friend, and I almost said, I just saw our film! I want to say it's great! Yeah. Fortunately, I didn't.
Good. Well done.
But
yeah.
I have a very kind of distorted
Sure.
experience of our relationship, and
that dog.
And the dog. It was so surreal.
Now
was
you
really,
know
really
how
surreal.
for decades when fans see you, they think they know you.
It's true.
It's true, right?
I get it now.
I've known you for like 25 years, Jillian. We are best friends. Would looking back at your illustrious interviews in your career, the times you've been interviewed, clearly there have never been train wrecks like we just saw here. Would any of them be good as dramatized material? No, Billy's like, no, not even close. Did you? Because you guys both kind of came to the fore in your 20s with like these giant TV shows, obviously, and like were thrust into the media spotlight. Did you know how to handle press? Like when you look back at Gillian's major shaking of the head, no.
I had training when I was like 14 or something,
Yeah.
for like media training, but nothing can prepare you for the British media. So you just make mistakes and then get better. You know, that's the journey. But nothing like that, you know. No.
Obviously, clearly. And for you,
I was awful at it. At the beginning, I had panic attacks. I did the Today Show the other day, and I think the penultimate time that I was on was when I was doing press for House of Mirth, and I literally had an on-air panic attack where I blanked. Nothing came to me at all. And but that happened quite frequently when I was doing X-Files. But the interviewer would say, you know, the typical question during X-Files was, "Do you believe in aliens?" First question, every motherfucking interview. But I heard it so much, and it was, I would freeze. I would literally freeze, and I'd have to say, "I'm so sorry, could you ask me again?" Which didn't make sense. It's like the simplest question in the world, but it's just my brain couldn't process what was going on, and I just couldn't put two words together for the longest time.
That's
yeah.
horrible, yeah.
last question: do you believe in aliens?
Remember what we told you in the green room.
Yes,
you know,
all right.
Don't make me get
It was going
involved
so
here.
well until the end. Truly, this is an amazing story. I'm so glad it exists in this form. You guys just kill it in these performances. It's a fantastic film. Everybody spread the word. Scoop is the film. Give it up for this amazing panel, these amazing actors, and Sam McAlister. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.